There's no other way to put it. Xbox has plain and simply backed out of the console wars or the console race, whatever you want to call it, which refers to the competition between the big three. You've got Nintendo, PlayStation, and Xbox. And with Xbox now pushing for a multi-platform release for all of their games, including first-party developed titles, and that's including on competing consoles, it's as good as Xbox throwing in the towel. There's no better indication of this than them announcing that their upcoming Halo game, Halo Campaign Evolve, which remakes the campaign of Halo 1, is also coming to PlayStation 5. That is Xbox's mascot we're talking about, who they're handing over to PlayStation. It's also coming out on Xbox and PC and everything. But the fact that it's coming out on PlayStation is a huge deal. I mean, we would have just never imagined. It's like when Sonic first came out on a Nintendo console. This has made such big headlines that even GameStop came in with this parody statement that has garnered millions of views and tens of thousands of likes, where they declared the console war is over. Whereas for the past 2 decades, the global gaming community has been engaged in an ongoing and increasingly petty conflict known as the console wars, whereas said conflict originated in the early 2000s with the release of Halo Combat Evolved as an Xbox exclusive title, whereas Halo Campaign Evolved is officially coming to PlayStation in 2026 with cross-play. Therefore, GameStop, acting under its authority as a neutral entity and the world's retail gaming and trade-in destination, hereby declares the official cessation of the console wars. And it's not just PlayStation where they want to put their games on. Phil Spencer recently made it clear that they want to bring their games to the Nintendo Switch too as well. They're kind of taking the Sega route, where instead of releasing first-party hardware that is going to have first-party exclusives on it, they're just going to release all of their games on as many platforms as possible and focus primarily on being a game publisher. Now, they are working on new hardware, but they've hinted that this new next-gen Xbox is essentially going to be a PC console hybrid. They've talked about how the ROG Xbox Ally is a good indication of what we can expect with the next-gen Xbox console. And now we have new details from Windows Central detailing that it is basically a PC which could run other stores like Steam and Epic and you name it. It'll feel like a traditional console. That's the goal, at least, if they get their Windows stuff together and actually optimize the user experience for a controller. This hardware is also said to run games on Xbox Series natively, including backwards compatible games, and they plan to have no multiplayer paywall, which they have to do if they're going to make this a PC console hybrid. But to make this hardware possible, it's got to be significantly more expensive than the upcoming PS6, which is going to be more of a traditional model, and it's going to have no exclusives. So I'm very curious to see how well this so-called console that's really just a PC is actually going to do. Now, with all of this going on, especially with Halo coming to PlayStation, media outlets are asking Xbox left and right, what is the strategy here? Why did they bring a game like Halo, which is so synonymous to Xbox, to PlayStation? What are their future plans, and what do they think about just the landscape of gaming and competition in that landscape in general? Well, Xbox recently spoke to the New York Times, specifically Matt Booty, who's the president of Xbox Game Content and Studios. There's an article dedicated to the fact that Xbox's mascot Halo, which is the Xbox exclusive, right? It's the thing that put Xbox on the map, is coming to a competing platform, arguably Xbox's biggest competitor. And speaking about competition in the gaming landscape, here's something that Matt Booty had to say that, I don't know, it's just baffling to me. Frankly, I think it's just an incredibly dumb statement that makes absolutely no sense. It just feels like a way to answer the question without really answering the question. Matt Booty said this about competition in gaming right now, quote, "Our biggest competition isn't another console. We are competing more and more with everything from TikTok to movies." What? Let's talk about the real reason why Xbox is going multi-platform, why Halo is coming to PlayStation. Xbox has fallen way too far behind compared to the likes of PlayStation and Nintendo, the dominant market leaders in the console landscape. If Xbox were in PlayStation's position right now, if they were the dominating console in the console market, do you think Xbox would enact the same strategy of going multi-platform? Of course not. They would stick to the model that is working for them, because that model works when you are doing it right. Xbox has simply not done a good job at supporting their Xbox hardware with exclusives, where Xbox as a platform is able to take off and keep up with the likes of PlayStation and Nintendo on a first-party level. And then there's the issue of Game Pass, which they try to make their flagship service almost like more important than their Xbox console hardware. That service just simply didn't garner the explosive growth in subscribers that they were expecting. The number of subscribers has kind of flatlined in terms of growth, and so they've had no choice but to now start to depend on sales of games to make Xbox, as a subsidiary of Microsoft that has spent so much money on acquiring new studios, worth the expenditure. This transformation we're seeing of Xbox, this strategy shift we're seeing, is a result of just business gone wrong. It's them just adapting so that they're able to recoup the money that they spent. It's just basic corporate economics. That's all this is. And make no mistake, Xbox's main competition absolutely is PlayStation and Nintendo, or at least it was once upon a time. Now, with them going multi-platform, their main competition is other games, because they're primarily going to be a game publishing company that's going to release all of their games on as many platforms as possible. This notion that their main competition is actually TikTok and movies and other media that is not related to gaming, it's just a really creative way to not be able to admit that they completely did not hit the mark in competing with the likes of PlayStation and Nintendo. It's a very creative way of saying we cannot compete with our main competition anymore. So baffled are people by the statement that a tweet that went viral in response to Microsoft saying, or Xbox specifically, saying we're competing more and more with everything from TikTok to movies, is this gif of Woody yelling at Buzz Lightyear saying, "You are a gaming company," the post reads here. This garnered 15.5 million views and hundreds of thousands of likes. And here we have one of the top responses to discussing film, talking about how Xbox has stated that they're mainly competing with TikTok and movies. Here we have a post with over 16,000 likes saying Xbox saying TikTok is their competition and not PlayStation is the most creative way to explain losing. The premise here that Xbox is trying to present is that console exclusivity and just the very concept of first-party consoles that have exclusive games on it is antiquated, and that model can no longer compete in the current landscape of, I don't know, other forms of media, especially with short-form media like TikTok, which is what the new generation of people are more focused on. Let's be very clear here. It's not that this model is completely untenable. It's that it's specifically untenable to Xbox. This model is specifically antiquated to Xbox because Xbox fumbled the bag so badly with the traditional model of competing in the console landscape. But other companies are doing just fine. PlayStation is doing just fine. Nintendo especially, even with the launch of Switch 2, is doing just fine. Here's Paul Tassi from Forbes, who highlighted how literally no one cares if they have to buy a video game console to play core games. Switch 2 just broke sales pace records, and no one gives a shit you can't stream their games to your phone instead. At the end of the day, Nintendo, for all their faults, make really fantastic games with some of the most nurtured and well-established IPs in media, period. The only way to play those Nintendo games is to buy a Nintendo Switch 2. And guess what? People are clearly still willing to buy unique consoles with unique games on it because those unique games that are on that specific unique console are just that irresistible. If you make irresistible products, people will go through the hoops that you need to go through to engage with that product, as long as it's within reasonable margins of pricing. Nintendo has their own ecosystem, their own platform, and they take in 100% of the revenue of their own games sold on their own platform. Whereas now Xbox will have to share that revenue with all of the platforms that they're releasing their first-party titles on. And I guarantee you that few are going to buy Xbox first-party games for that new next-gen Xbox hardware, because if this is indeed a PC console hybrid and you can download and play Steam games on it, people are going to opt for the more fully fleshed out, the more feature complete Steam ecosystem rather than the Microsoft Store. That's where most of the PC purchases are going to get made. And then when it comes to consoles, because PlayStation players have access to Xbox games, they won't feel the need to get this PC console hybrid because they can just easily play those games on PlayStation while also being able to enjoy those PlayStation exclusives. So, you know, Xbox, in trying to be a jack of all trades, they're kind of being the worst of both worlds. They're not going to be the most powerful PC, and then their PC storefront is not going to be able to compete with Steam. And then as a console, it's going to be too expensive compared to PS6, so their games are going to sell more on PlayStation than on Xbox and in Microsoft's own ecosystem. But at the same time, because they're releasing their games on as many platforms as possible, they will make a lot of money in game sales for popular IPs like Halo because now they have the whole PlayStation audience to leverage. So as third-party software developers, I do think that they're going to do really well for themselves. But as a first-party creator of games and, consoles and hardware in that area, in that arena, they've completely lost and they've completely backed out of this race or war, whatever you want to call it, that they absolutely just cannot win in and cannot compete in. And that's really the only reason why Halo is not exclusive to Xbox anymore. It has nothing to do with TikTok and movies being a competition, because the gaming landscape with its current more traditional model is still thriving because gaming is its own unique medium that has nothing to do with TikTok or movies. You can't play video games through TikTok or movies, so I don't know why those elements would come into play. Look, Xbox can do whatever it wants. Their games going, multi-platform. Ultimately, that means that their games will become more accessible. I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing, but don't make bullshit excuses as to why things played out the way they did. Don't try to make it seem like this was all part of your grand plan, your grand strategy. This was a business shift. This was just you having to adjust your business strategy based on the fact that your previous business endeavor just didn't really work out. At the same time, I do think it's a bit of a loss that this competitive landscape between the big three is now down to the big two, Nintendo and PlayStation, given that competition is really good for the console landscape because it forces everyone to one-up each other. It forces everyone to make really good products, and it makes sure that nobody gets complacent. Xbox being a competitor in the console landscape, I think, was a positive thing. And while in an ideal world, no game is exclusive and everyone can play any game in whatever platform, I also do think that exclusivity does breed those really unique experiences that are uniquely optimized for very specific hardware. But yeah, bottom line is that this quote of that they're competing more and more with everything from TikTok to movies and that their main competition isn't another console, it just feels like hopium. It feels like them trying to present everything as a positive outcome when in reality, there is a scenario that Xbox would have loved where they are the dominant console in this market. They would have loved to be in the position that Nintendo and PlayStation are right now. And if they were in that position, they wouldn't be doing any of this stuff or saying any of these things. But this is what they have to do and what they have to say because they plain and simply lost. But that's one man's take. I'd love to hear what your thoughts and opinions are on Matt Booty's quote in the comments below. Are you in my side of the fence where you think this makes absolutely no sense? Or do you see some merit in what Matt Booty is saying? Do you have some insight that might explain why Matt Booty would say something like this and think that it makes any semblance of sense? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.